Hi guys, today I'm going to elaborate more about capitalism and specifically on the concept of work. And I will try to argue that people who say I am slave to the system, I'm slave to my job, there is nothing I can do about that. I just have to do my job for a living, and I have to satisfy my boss or the company or any working place I work for or work at. So I will try to argue that this is just a trap of the mindset that they have developed over the years of being immersed in the current system, in the monetary system as known as capitalism, from the word capital. And so there is a capital loop that they are trapped into. So it's really hard for people to get out and leave this kind of mindset. But I will try to provide some ways how to resist this kind of thinking, and yes, resist this kind of thinking, and what to do about that. First, let's try to understand where this kind of mindset comes from. That I am slave to my job, there is nothing I can do about that. If I do something wrong, I get fired, and it's really hard to find a job. It's just like everyone else may get fired, and they're slaves to the system, which is of course reasonable. We're all slaves to the system, but there is something you can do about that. So whenever you take on extra hours of work, so just think it over. Think it over why you take extra hours of work, to satisfy your job, to satisfy your company, to satisfy your boss, managers, whoever is at your job, or just you need extra income. Why do you need extra income? You lived without it before, and that seemed to be not that bad, or it seemed to be fine. Every time when you offer the extra hours, to think it over, what kind of value also you can create if you didn't take that job, but you could spend those extra hours on something else. What kind of value for yourself and for your close people, or for your family you could create, or for the people who you care for, for whoever you care in this world. So this is one method how to, think it over and how to resist this kind of thinking. So the fear to lose this job is also understandable, because those bosses or managers or whoever they are, they may find a replacement for you, and you have a fear of losing the job. But just again, think it over. And what? Do you want a job that enslave you in the way that they just interfere your plans, what you have for your very 2 days, rare days of the week, or some people have only one day? And do you really want this kind of job? Why not to lose a job and give a try and go to another employer, or find another employer in the worst case, or lose a job and train yourself, get skills, and do another kind of job. Teach yourself something for another kind of job. So I think it's not that as hard as people conceive it to be, to say no to those those employers that require you to work extra hours or that require you finish the case, whatever it takes. You may think that this kind of this kind of way of doing things is much as rather than satisfying your boss or your managers and take on the extra hours. But just imagine if most of employees did the same thing. They would resist their managers or their bosses take on the extra hours. And just imagine what would happen. It would be radical change in the thinking, not only in the thinking to resist this kind of obliged extra hours, but also it will be the change, radical change in thinking of employers themselves. So it just takes courage and an action to do so, and well, also efforts in order to resist this kind of thing and resist your fear of losing the job. Because if you lose a job, the company or the place, any location where you work is not going to collapse because you are leaving. They're not going to go bankrupt because you are leaving. If they lost you, that would be going fine. So you just realize how non-influential you are to them. So why not to take the lead and lead yourself in your life? If you don't like the place, if you have the bosses or managers who are not satisfied of you, then just leave the place and get another job. So in conclusion, I would say that we are the ones who allow ourselves to be treated that way. And it's not about, I am a slave to my job, I'm a slave to the current system. It's not only about that. It's also about that you might be the slave to this kind of thinking, and no matter what, you have to resist it. That's how a social change happens. If we look at the history of humankind, it starts with merely starts with a thought. So you might also ask, oh, why do I talk this way and I propose those ways? Like, have they been tested? And I say, yes, they have been tested, and that is why I talk about those ways. And that is why I say it's possible to do so. And based on my life experience, I quit the job for a company. I quit a job for school, and the action, that very action of that single person, in this case me, influenced somehow their and change the kind of thinking that I had towards employees. We're still good acquaintances with boss of the managers and with the manager and with the owner of that school, one of the owners of that school. We didn't quarrel apart, but there were something that made them think think it over. So go ahead and test those if you're really oppressed by the job that you have now.